The story begins when Sue, the fatty loser, confesses his love to the baddest girl in school, Daein, saying that he has always liked her since they became friends. Daein begins to hesitate, and the fatty apologizes for confessing even though she hates him. However, Daeyeon reassures him that she doesn't hate a whale like him. Following that, Sue's friend, who is waiting for his return, questions how the confession went and figures that he got rejected. Sue lets him know that she wants to focus on her studies, making his friend cringe. Just then, a football comes flying towards Sue, and he manages to stop it in the most cliched anime protagonist style. His friend mentions that Sue has been good at sports, makes sure to eat a balanced meal, and doesn't miss any leg days but is still as fat as ever. Eventually, Sue returns home and looks at a picture of his parents, realizing that it can be anything but genetics. As his mother was a hottie back in the days, and even though he had never met his father, he used to be a well-known Korean wrestler who had won multiple awards as well. After that, Sue decides to forget his diet, but after finding it hard to open the packet of ramen, he ends up eating salad instead. Later that day, Sue is running around the neighborhood, and the thought of getting rejected motivates him even more. He ends up running a distance of 9.5 miles and thinks how he pushed himself a bit too hard. Sue then realizes that he doesn't recognize the area when suddenly, an unknown person compliments Sue for his speed. That old man then jumps from the bridge and lands in front of Sue, reassuring him that he's not there to eat him. He introduces himself as Mang Tai, the judge who overlooks the demon in Korea. Seeing how Sue has no idea what he's talking about, Mang Tai takes out a cloak and wraps it around Sue. Inside that cloak, Sue finds himself restricted and unable to move. Soon after, he is let out of the cloak and witnesses strange scenery in front of his eyes. Mang Tai mentions that it's the demon realm and asks him to look at the demons surrounding him. He further says that humans once used to fear and worship demons, but now they only see them as superstitions. Furthermore, once every 666 years, the Great Festival is held to choose the new Demon King. Mang Tai continues the explanation, but Sue interrupts, questioning what any of this has to do with him. Mang Tai replies that all demon species need at least one candidate to send to the festival, and Sue is the only one who has inherited the blood of the goblin. Sue tries to argue that they have the wrong person when unexpectedly, a demon leaps in the air and lands right in front of Sue. That demon mentions that they will test Sue to see if he has potential. Mang Tai tells the demon that if he wins against Sue, he can eat him. That demon named Big Mouth likes the deal. Without wasting a second, the Big Mouth dashes towards Sue and punches him in the guts, sending him flying and crashing onto the floor. Mang Tai tells Sue that he needs to prove himself in order to participate in the festival. Big Mouth then grabs Sue and slams him onto the ground, mentioning how he is taking the attacks better than he thought. Deciding to finish the test, Big Mouth crushes Sue under his hand, only to witness Sue in a completely reformed body, keeping his hand from crushing him. Following that, Sue uses a move named Goblin Wrestling and slams Big Mouth on the ground. At this point, Sue has awakened and is now a half-goblin. Sue then finds himself talking to his friend about all that happened, but he thinks that it was a dream and didn't find it interesting. His friend mentions how strange it seems as people usually dream about familiar things, and Sue agrees, saying that the dream felt real, as if he knew what he was doing from the start. He feels like he can do everything once again, but gets mocked by his friend for talking like a jobless weeb. Sue then wonders if the dream was due to him being obsessed with losing weight, and suddenly returns back to the demon realm. Mang Tai questions if he is back to his senses as Sue went to sleep while standing. This makes Sue realize that it isn't a dream, and looking at the demon lying next to him makes Sue freak out even more. Just then, the girl next to Mang Tai mentions how disappointed she is in Sue, as half-humans are even more pathetic than she thought, making her wonder if Sue really has goblin blood. Mang Tai mentions Sue's fight, but that girl replies that Big Mouth was just a small fry who can't even use magic. Sue interrupts the conversation, asking them to send him back home. But Mang Tai comments that Sue has already proved himself. Meanwhile, the demons surrounding them begin to discuss the fight and how Sue might really have goblin blood in him. With that being said, Mang Tai makes all the spectating demons witness and declares Sue a monster and not a human. This results in the demon dashing away to spread the news, thinking that the festival will be an interesting one this time. Mang Tai further mentions that Sue's name will be added to the register of monsters. However, Sue keeps on insisting on returning back, which makes the girl frustrated, and she says that Sue can't return back until he is able to conceal his identity among humans. Sue tries to reassure them that he has never harmed anyone, and seeing how his dumb ass can't understand Mang Tai, begins using his powers, causing Sue to jump back. Mang Tai tells Sue that his body is already that of a monster and the goblin blood makes him a dozen times stronger than a human. Luckily, Sue will only need to wait for 6 months, as this law for demons was made by the current Demon King. 666 years ago, all monsters were free to enter the human realm and hunt them, but there were some who used to save humans from those other monsters, as they liked being worshipped by humans. After the end of the last festival, the new demon lord wrote a new law that restricted demons from harming or revealing themselves in front of humans, which is why humans are no longer scared of them. Sue is told that in 6 months, this law could be rewritten by the new demon lord, which will allow all the demons to enter the human realm and awaken the forgotten fears within humanity. Mang Tai then tells Sue to either wait for 6 months or harness his power and leave quickly, or he can become the next demon lord and rewrite that law. That girl demon mocks Mang Tai for speaking bullshit. Mang Tai realizes that he hasn't introduced her and informs Sue that her name is Seoa, and she is also going to participate in the festival. Seoa then tells Mang Tai to take her qualification test to enter the human realm already. Seoa then wonders why she has to take the test, as there are countless monsters weaker than her. But Mang Tai mentions that she also needs to have patience. Furthermore, he says how this is a perfect opportunity for her to practice as a human is already standing beside her. Mang Tai then gives Seoa 1 month to teach Sue the basics of being a monster. If Sue makes a certain amount of progress, Mang Tai will allow both of them to enter the human realm. But Seoa replies that she can never teach a brain-dead person such important things, and Mang Tai tells her to either teach him or wait 6 months as well. Following that, Seoa asks Sue about Monster Force, but as expected, he is as clueless as the lads in a math exam. Just then, the Big Mouth wakes up and lets Sue know that their fight is not over. Seoa comments on how his being weak insults the other monsters. This makes Big Mouth furious and he lunges at Seoa, making Sue panic, but Seoa easily restricts him, as she belongs to a race that are said to be the strongest monster race after the disappearance of goblins. The thing Sue witnessed just now made him unable to utter a single word out of fear. Seoa informed him that the ability she used is called demon magic, and it consumes demon energy. Inherent magic and acquired magic are 2 types of magic, and the goblin wrestling Sue used earlier is an example of inherent magic. Meanwhile, acquired magic can be learned by any demon if they studied and train hard enough. The only reason Big Mouth can't free himself from such a simple bound spell is due to his negligence. Following that, Seoa decides to teach Sue about the demon world only if he puts his mind and soul into it. Sue replies that he will do everything in his power to keep up with Seoa. With that being said, she mentions how they should start with Sue's meal and informs him that one needs demon energy to use magic. All demons have it, but Sue most likely doesn't, as it is his first day at the demon realm. All the Big Macs he devoured don't add to his demon energy, and he must only have what he was born with. Sue says that he doesn't feel hungry at the moment when, out of nowhere, his whole body begins aching. Seoa once again comments on him not having demon energy, and the few amounts he had was used during his fight earlier. Furthermore, Seoa says that if a demon wins an official battle, he gets to decide whether the loser lives or not. The solution to restoring demon energy is eating Big Mouth, as it will fix his hunger instantly. Without wasting a second, Sue begins moving towards the Big Mouth. At this point, the only thing lingering in Sue's mind was to feed on his prey. But Seoa failed to notice that Sue's goblin's greed caught sight of a more tempting prey. This resulted in Sue lunging at Seoa, making her a bit frustrated as she used her chains to bind Sue, complimenting his iron balls to go after someone like her. She then decides to teach Sue a lesson, but he manages to break free from her chains, surprising her as they weren't any ordinary ones. After Sue freed himself from the chains, Seoa finally realizes that he still is a goblin and breaks one of her nails to use a more powerful ability. She makes a circle with her blood, summoning the Great Demon Emperor. This causes a giant hand to punch him and open its palm right in front of Sue's face, blasting hollow purple and obliterating the poor Big Mouth who ended up catching strays. This energy beam creates a hole in the mountain, and Seoa hopes she didn't end Sue's life. But then, she notices Sue, standing totally unscathed and now with a horn on his head. Apparently the magic he awakened could only be used by a few strong goblins. Su then broke off his horn and created a weapon out of it. Seoa mentions that Su is still a handful, despite being a half-blood, while he gets ready to attack her with his magic, named Goblin's Club. Seoa is an outstanding monster who has obtained all 9 tails even before reaching the age of 100. That is something only she gained in 1,000 years. This is the reason she could feel how powerful the person standing in front of her really is. Seoa figures that she won't lose if it comes down to monster force amount, but still finds it hard to understand the intense pressure she's feeling. Just then, Seoa lunges at her and she prepares to defend herself, managing to grab his weapon using the hand of the Demon Emperor. Following that, she decides to show off her skills to the mad lad in front of her, and uses the Demon Emperor's hand to pull Seoa towards her, allowing her to land a punch of Su, sending him flying away. However, she is sure that this won't be enough, and it might take a few more strikes to take Su down. When she tries to pull him again, the Emperor Demon's arm begins to struggle, and she notices Su giving the arm a hard time. This is something she finds unbelievable, but by that time, Su manages to snatch back his weapon from the Emperor Demon. He then transforms it into another form and uses the newly transformed weapon to attack the Emperor Demon's arm, making Seoa realize that not only the shape, but the attack method of the weapon has also changed. This results in her summoning the Emperor Demon's other arm, as well and raining down punches using both hands, but Su still manages to block all of them off. Seoa is shocked that Su is still holding tight, as a demon of age 100 or 200 would be no match for it. All the praise she heard of the goblins began to return to her mind, as a halfling who just opened his eyes was at that level. But this is all he can do at this level, as Su's magic energy seems to be reaching its limit, and if he keeps it up, his body will eventually break apart. Su tries dashing towards her for another attack, but she manages to block it, and this time uses the powers of 5 tails to summon the upper half of the Demon Emperor. When Su comes back for another strike, the Demon Emperor attacks him using his weapon, which sends Su crashing away. After eating that deadly attack head-on, Su finally comes back to his senses, and Seoa lets him know that he'd be kicking the bucket soon. Furthermore, she blames him for coming at her in the first place and is frustrated, as that old fart will be giving her an earful. Seoa then notices him crying and calling out for his mother, which makes her heart melt, and having no other choice, she picks up his body and gives him a kiss to provide him with some of the monster's energy. After the kiss, she spits to showcase how disgusting the kiss was and mentions that she needs returns for the investment, as Seoa gave him magic from 5 tails, and from the fox beads she was holding onto. Sometime later, Seoa wakes up in a room, and simultaneously, Seoa enters with a drink in her hand, looking at him with disgust in her eyes, making Su both confused and terrified at the same time. He then apologizes to Seoa for everything that happened, as even though he was fully conscious during the battle, Su couldn't control his own body. He continues to apologize to Seoa, but she replies by telling him to consume the drink she brought before it gets cold. Su agrees, thanking her for the drink, and wonders if it is some kind of medicine. Nonetheless, he takes his sip and almost throws up, which results in her warning Su not to spit it out. When he asks about the ingredients used in the drink, she refuses to reply and tells him to finish it up. While he struggles to drink, Seoa mentions that the giant mouth most probably ran away while the two of them were fighting, but his ownership is still Su's. She then notices that Su might have spit out what was in his mouth, and Su wonders if there is an alternative method. Seoa replies that he is no longer the whale-looking human and should be prepared to hurt others to get stronger. Su lets her know that it is not what he's thinking about. As to him, all the demons are monsters who hurt people. If he doesn't do anything, the people close to him will face a terrible fate, which is why he is willing to do whatever it takes. The reason he asked for an alternative method was just in case there wasn't a chance to obtain energy by eating monsters. Seoa says that even though the best way to gain energy is by eating other monsters, a duel between them is only possible if both parties agree. But now, easy demons won't be coming for Su, as countless monsters saw his strength and have spread rumors about him everywhere. While the easy demons won't fight him any longer, the ones who will come after will be the opposite, who Su won't be able to handle at his level. She then tells him to come outside, as she has a present for him. After stepping out, Su notices a demon dog wrapped around in chains that Seoa brought for him. She lets him know that it lost its rights as a monster after losing its sense of reasoning and becoming someone just like Su was during their battle. Even though Su is lucky, some monsters are not, and they remain in their berserk form forever. Seoa then questions why he is standing like a mannequin when the demon dog is coming for his blood. The beast attacks and Shu manages to dodge the initial attack, which surprises Seoa, as she thought that the loser would just get his ass beaten to a pulp. However, she still figures that Shu will just keep on running away, and thinks about his opponent from the fire dog family who consumed monsters illegally to increase his powers for the festival. But due to eating more monsters than he could handle, he ended up going crazy. The monster keeps on attacking Sue, and all he can do is dodge its attack, which is something Seoa predicted, as she is sure that Shu will be losing the battle. Even though the monster has lost its senses, its physical ability is still higher than Sue. Furthermore, she plans to awaken Sue's instinct by putting him on the brink of death, as it is the only time it comes out. Just then, Sue lands a punch on the demon dog and remembers the time when he was complimented by his boxing box for having great athleticism. Sue's goal at that time was to lose weight, but his boxing coach told him that he'd lose weight if he stayed consistent, and even offered to make him a diet plan, but only Sue knew that it'd be still close to impossible. Unlike others who have trained in martial arts, Sue only did it to lose weight, but despite staying consistent, he never achieved his goal. In the present, he continues to beat the demon dog using various combat moves, as he has practiced a total of 16 sports, out of which 7 were combat sports. He then manages to land a brutal kick on the demon's face, breaking some of its teeth and leaving Seoa in a state of shock. Eventually, the demon dog falls and Sue begins to wonder how he is supposed to eat such a monster. Seoa wonders if the technique Sue used is martial arts, and is impressed that Sue was able to get a sense of things during battle, even when it hasn't been long since he gained a monster's body. Sue then asks Seoa how he is supposed to eat the monster, but Seoa mentions that they will talk about it after he has won the battle. Just then, the demon dog attacks his shoulder and bites off a chunk of his shoulder. Sue begins to panic, but the demon doesn't give him any time and lands another strike. Seoa wonders why Sue didn't dodge, as he had more than enough time to do so. This makes her realize that the biggest reason humans are scared of getting injured isn't because of the pain, but due to the fear of losing a body part. It is a primal fear that humans are born with, and is enough to make Shu tremble. Suddenly, he notices that his shoulder has been completely healed, and when the demon slashes his chest using its fangs, the wound instantly heals once again. As they continue to fight, Seoa thinks that the main difference between humans and monsters is the body's durability, and as long as a monster isn't dead or fatally wounded, injuries are meaningless. Sue then manages to land a brutal punch of the monster, which is enough to send him flying away. His arm starts to feel like it will break after doing the attack, as the rebound he got from just swinging his arm felt like he was getting hit by a car. However, he is sure that the demon has a regenerative ability and might get back on his feet soon. But Seoa mentions that it's the end of the battle, as his punch is not enough to end the demon's life, but is enough to restrict him from recovering immediately. She then questions Sue about how it felt using magic with his mind in the right place for once. Sue was surprised, as he didn't know he used magic, but from the regeneration to the last punch he made, all of it used some amount of magic. She then asks if Sue felt something different during the fight, to which he replies that he felt something similar to static electricity. Seoa figures that it must be his magic, and lets him know that he'd get a clearer sense of it with experience. She further mentions that the real reason she made him fight that demon was that Sue will be able to display his magic if he struggles to win, but it still came as a surprise, as she predicted the battle to last at least 10 days and for Sue to get his ass handed to him. After receiving a compliment from Seoa, she tells him to finish the job and asks if he has ever eliminated someone. Sue disagrees, and she advises him to end it in one blow, as it's best for both him and the demon. Furthermore, the abdomen is the best place to attack, as the majority of monsters store their magic there. As he prepares to strike, Seoa thinks about how the first time must be the hardest, as almost anyone will be reluctant to eliminate someone to gain energy for themselves. However, the thought of him being a fat gamer kid all his life gives Sue the motivation he needs, and he ends the monster's life. Seoa then informs him that the energy crystal he retrieved from the demon's body is what he needs to eat to gain energy. Without hesitation, Sue ends up swallowing it, but realizes that nothing has changed, and a crow sitting on his shoulder mentions that usually they get a burst of light or some other cliché stuff right away. Sue freaks out and makes the crow fly, which later turns into a hot crow girl, causing Sue to regret his actions. Seoa questions what she is doing there, and the girl replies that friends don't need a reason to meet up, but she did come on business today. Following that, she introduces herself as Somi to Sue, saying that they have both played together since they were little. Sue also introduces himself to Somi, while Seoa asks the reason behind her visit. Apparently, she has started doing a part-time job for Manhwa and is there to give them a reward for the demon they caught. Seoa asks her to give the reward to Sue as he is the one who took the demon dog out. Somi agrees, saying that she was watching from the start and couldn't believe that he was a human a few hours ago. She then teases Seoa about Sue being a tough opponent for him, but she is confident that he is nothing but a weakling in front of her. With that being said, Somi gives Sue a few choices to choose as his reward. The first one is to either go back home right now or to become an even stronger demon. Later that day, Sue calls Yusin, who seems worried as Sue has been skipping school and not picking up his phone either. Sue replies, saying that he has a ridiculous favor to ask, and he is the only one a loner like him can rely on. After hearing what he wants, Yusin begins to freak out, but Sue mentions that his mother will freak out if he disappears for a month without giving her a heads up. Apparently, he wants Yusin to tell his mother that he will be spending a month at the martial arts center that Yusin's family runs and will be back in a month, ready to mog everybody. Yusin mentions that his family doesn't accept average Joes like him, but Sue lets him know that he doesn't have a choice either. In the end, Yusin agrees, saying that he can tell him the reason as he will surely believe whatever Sue has to say. This makes Sue think about telling him everything, but Somi tells him to keep it a secret as she'd be punished for letting him talk as well. This results in Sue deciding to keep it a secret and hanging up on the poor lad. Earlier, when Somi told Sue that he was allowed to go back, he got confused as he needed the qualification to do so. Somi agrees but reassures him that she's not lying and that he can go back if he wants to. Surprisingly, Sue refuses to go and mentions that he will go after passing the test because if he doesn't train when he has the chance, something much worse might happen to the people close to him. He just confirmed how dangerous demons are with his previous fight and is now in dire need of power to respond to situations like that. This is what he decided and thinks is the right thing to do. Hearing him trying to act all cool makes Somi excited, and she compliments him but gets interrupted by Seoa, who tells Sue that going back to the real world wasn't even an award to begin with. Turns out Somi hangs a choice over one's head and sees how they will react. Somi replies that it is a test to check out a person's personality, and humans get to know other humans by asking similar questions as well. She then wonders if Seoa read the book she gave to her, and Seoa replies that it was so bizarre that she couldn't read past the index page. This makes Somi a bit disappointed as she wrote it herself and tells Seoa that she will need to borrow Sue for some time. After Seoa allows her, Somi uses her powers to turn into a giant crow right in front of Sue's eyes and lets him know that she has the right to go to the human world as she desires. However, she takes full responsibility for what happens and is only allowed to take a demon along every 6 months. Back in the present, Sue thanks Somi for lending him her phone, and she wonders if calling his friend is the only thing he wants to do, as he can go see his family as well. But sadly, the only family Sue has is his mother, who is on a business trip, and it's better this way as it'll be much harder to leave if she were home. He then offers to buy dinner for Somi, and she instantly takes the offer, letting him know that she always wanted to try something, but it was impossible for her to find a way to eat it. With that being said, Sue takes out his inner master chef and cooks the dish for Somi himself. He wonders if this is all she wants, and Somi replies that she always wanted to eat a home-cooked meal, but dining out is all she could do. Surprisingly, she goes to a school that is right next to Sue's school. She just started and doesn't have any close friends who invite her to their house. After they are done eating the meal, Somi takes out his award, which is something called a storage scroll, and works as both a backpack and a smartphone. He can summon it and also scroll through using his finger. Furthermore, he can put in and take out any items from the scroll no matter their size or weight. There are other ways to use it as well, but it will take some time for Sue to get used to it. Additionally, he is given some demon coins which are valued higher as compared to other demon currencies, and the 40 coins he got is a pretty big sum. Lastly, he also got the demon treasure, which is an item with demon energy, capable of doing some pretty cool things. Usually, demons only get coins for catching a kobold, but Manhwa also gave him the treasure as he has high hopes for Sue. He wonders if she is talking about the festival, and Somi agrees, saying that they will be proud if a demon from Korea becomes the king. Even in the last festival, the Korean monster barely lost against the current king, and coincidentally, he was a goblin as well. Sue mentions how everything still feels pretty surreal to him, but Somi lets him know that he is adjusting quite well and that he should aim even higher. Why just take basic training when he can become the Demon King and change the law for the next 666 years? Just then, Seoa notices something and asks Somi why the scroll is flashing. She lets him know that it is an emergency summon for nearby demons and figures that it must be some demon breaking the law and hurting humans. Soon after, the significance of the situation hits her, and she begins freaking out. That night, Seoa is alone at home and decides to check out the new scroll he got. He puts his hand inside and takes out the reward he received from Manhwa, wondering if it is some sort of weapon or used as a shield. He then notices that it's almost 10 p.m. and remembers that before leaving to check out the situation, Somi told him that she needs to be back by 10 as it is the time limit they have in the human world. Additionally, she told him not to be so formal with her, as the two of them are now friends. It is now past 10 p.m. and Somi still isn't back. He wonders if something bad happened to her and notices a picture of his dad, figuring that he must have gotten the goblin blood from his dad's side. Furthermore, Manhwa told him that he is either 4th or 5th generation and has a very small amount of goblin blood. While he questions himself whether his dad knew about the goblin blood, the balcony window opens by itself, making him a bit suspicious. Elsewhere, a human is getting choked by a demon, and it almost finishes off the human until Somi attacks it, fully aware that she doesn't have many feathers left to attack with. The demon lunges at her and she dashes towards it too, managing to deal with it and telling the human not to worry as his friend will be just fine. However, the human begins to freak out even more after seeing an even bigger demon standing behind Somi. Before she can even react, the demon moves towards her to attack, but gets taken care of by someone else. That person turns out to be another demon who tells Somi to be careful or she'll put her clan's name to shame. Somi replies that her clan is full of pathetic weaklings anyway, and mentions that she was sure that Gohyu, the demon who saved her, would have her back. Gohyu advises her to quit yapping and focus on the job while he uses his powers to add false memories into the human's mind, making him forget everything that happened recently. Somi realizes that hypnosis isn't his clan's inherent magic, and he must have worked really hard to learn it. His hard work is one of the reasons he is said to be the favorite to win the festival. Following that, Somi lets him know that she took care of 24 demons, but they all were small fries with leashes on, which makes her think that someone is controlling them. Apparently, 7 people were eliminated while 50 of them were injured. She wonders if the culprit knows about it being a grave crime, and Gohyu replies that they are not doing it for fun, but for another purpose. Shockingly, this fact was hidden from their generations, but the reason demons used to hunt humans was that eating humans was the greatest source of nutrition and power for demons. Somi is surprised as she hears this for the first time, but according to Gohyu, this was common knowledge that was not passed down to their generation. If this information spreads, the human world won't be as peaceful as it is today. Also, not many demons go through the trouble of taking the test to visit the human world, as many of them only see the human world as a place not worthy of visit until the law changes. But as the festival is getting closer, every demon is striving to become stronger and is willing to commit a grave crime after learning the truth about humans. Recently, there have been more cases like this than usual, which is something Gohyu doesn't understand, as he would have done things differently if it were him. Instead of using small fries to eliminate humans, he would have kidnapped them all and taken care of the humans all by himself. Somi mentions how that culprit must be a total wimp, not having the balls to come out on his own, and Gohyu agrees. As Somi continues the conversation, she realizes that the time is up, and she fudged up. Asking Gohyu to take care of the rest, she instantly flies away. Meanwhile, Seoa checks out the balcony window, not knowing that there is a demon standing behind him. The demon realizes how easy of a target Seoa is and almost attacks him from behind, but Seoa dodges it in the nick of time. Grabbing that demon's arm, he throws him out of the window. Apparently, it was thanks to Goblin's blood who remembered the attack from demon blood, as goblins don't fall for the same trick twice. Seoa realizes that his body moved on its own and notices that there is a hole in the ground, but the demon is nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, he appears behind Seoa and begins choking him with his lower snake body. He compliments Seoa for having good instincts and uses his body to swing and throw Seoa onto the ground. As Seoa struggles to get back up, the demon lands right next to him, saying that he feels bad for the residents as the property value will decrease. Seoa somehow manages to get back up, and the demon advises him to give up. Seoa also knows that the demon he is facing is not an ordinary one, and he keeps on pestering Sue to let him devour Sue. Furthermore, he mentions that the harder Sue struggles, the more painful his death will be, and shows him a picture of his hot mom, promising not to eat her. This makes Sue lose his shit as he lunges at the demon and manages to land a punch. He then goes for a knockdown but notices that his body is completely paralyzed. The demon lets Sue know that he used viper poison on him and made it work by touching his body while he was busy punching him like a sandbag. Sue is forced to sit down as his body struggles to get rid of the poison, while the demon lets him know that weaklings on the bottom are prey to the strong. After that, the demon turns into a giant snake, and all Sue can do is look at him. He then lunges at Sue to finish the deal, but Sue somehow manages to gather some magic and attacks the snake, but sadly he misses the only chance he had. The snake demon then attacks Sue using his tail and sends him crashing into a nearby wall. Simultaneously, the snake demon notices that he is attacked by someone as well, and that person turns out to be a human with a mask, who uses his powers to electrocute the snake. The demon turns back into his human form and figures that the human is a demon exorcist. As the human takes out his weapon, the demon realizes that he doesn't have time to waste on him, as it would be the end of him if Go-Ahu appeared. Having no other choice, he uses his blood to make a puppet appear who he was saving for the festival. That puppet used to be a famous demon of the West who was pretty big in size as well. The puppet instantly attacks the human, but the human lunges at him, defending himself against the attack and slashing that puppet in half, surprising the demon. The human then manages to stab the demon in the head and then asks Sue to explain himself. But Sue tells him to do the same, as he ends up recognizing his voice. That human removes his mask and turns out to be none other than Yusin himself. Yusin begins to panic, asking Sue how he became such a Chad in one night. Sue lets him know that he can't breathe, and Yusin figures that it's because of the poison and asks him to stop talking. However, Sue's body begins to heal itself, which comes as a surprise to Yusin. Just then, he notices that the snake demon ran away, making him a bit frustrated. Later that night, Yusin gets frustrated as the demon he was supposed to catch ran away, and his friend is a half-demon. Sue questions if this was the demon Yusin didn't tell him about the training center, and he agrees, saying that his family eradicates demons. But he mentions that all this will end in 6 months, and Sue asks if it is common for demons to hunt humans. Yusin replies that it rarely happens, as they mostly fight themselves. But it's different lately, as they eat humans to gain strength in order to become the next demon lord. Just then, Yusin notices something and takes out his weapon. Simultaneously, someone lands right in front of them, and that person turns out to be Somi, who seems really worried. Yusin points his sword towards Somi, telling her not to come closer or he will cut her down. When Sue tries taking her side, Yusin reminds him that she is a demon and the kind who follows the law, which is why he gave her a warning. He then begins scolding Sue for trusting demons so easily. Furthermore, Yusin reminds Sue that they feed on humans for power, and even if he has some goblin blood, he's still a human. Additionally, he doesn't buy the training course to enter the human realm. Somi knows that Yusin has a point, but Sue is already a resident of the demon realm, and breaching the rules will bring worse consequences for both him and Yusin. She decides to take care of things before anyone gets hurt. Somi is very well aware that Yusin is pretty strong, but decides to try anyway. Yusin realizes that she has decided to ignore his warning and gets ready to attack when suddenly Sue kicks him and snatches his sword, wondering if all the engravings mean anything. When Yusin questions Sue's actions, Sue lets him know that he also ate a demon in order to protect himself and the people he cares for. Yusin tries to change his mind and reassures him that he will protect him for the next 6 months. Sue interrupts, saying that he has something to add to the conversation and lets Yusin know that he plans to become the next demon king. This statement shocks both Yusin and Somi, and he thinks that Sue might have lost it. But Sue informs him that he wants to succeed so the human world doesn't turn into what he fears. Furthermore, he tells Yusin not to look so upset, as it's better for him to try his best instead of waiting for things to happen. Eventually, Yusin agrees but lets Sue know that if he crosses the line, he'll strike him down. Sue doesn't seem to mind, as he thinks he deserved death if it ever comes to that. Yusin then asks for Somi's name, and she introduces herself as a messenger for Yumeng. He apologizes for interfering with the demon's business and warns her that if Sue unjustly gets hurt or eliminated, he'll come for every last one of them involved. With that being said, Yusin walks away and Somi mentions how terrified she was the entire time. Just then, Goayu appears, advising Solmi not to charge head-on when she doesn't know how strong her enemy is. He then recognizes Su as the famous half-demon and walks towards him. Apparently, the demons who can take the form of animals are called bestial demons. The demons a level higher than them are called mythical creatures like Seoa, and beyond them are celestial creatures who are worshipped by both humans and demons. Goayu introduces himself to Su, letting him know that he is an opponent he must take down to become the Demon King. Goayu puts his hand out to shake hands with Sui, and Sui does the same, but Solmi yells at Sui not to grab his hand. Sui suddenly stops and Solmi begins to question Goayu about his actions. But Goayu couldn't care less and forcefully grabs Sui's hand, using his magic named Spacefold, teleporting both of them to a different location. Su's legs begin to wobble due to this sudden change, and Goayu compliments him for still standing, as not many demons can handle Spacehold. Su asks if he's going to eat him, to which Goayu replies that he might, but he wants to ask Sui something before they begin. He wonders if Shu plays video games, and he agrees, saying that he used to in middle school. The games he used to play mostly include RPG, as he prefers them over online games. Goayu likes the answer and mentions that they might get along. He attacks Su, but luckily, Su manages to dodge the attack. Turns out Goayu attacked him with ice magic and continues to rain down more ice cones on him. But just like before, Su manages to dodge them as well, making Goayu impressed as realizes that Su is not just a small fry. As Su prepares to attack back, he remembers the previous fight where the enemy drew him closer to attack. Using this as a lesson, Shu made sure to attack Goayu with demon energy from a distance, which was made possible by the destroyer armor he previously acquired. Furthermore, even after the attack, Su stays on guard as the attack sometimes doesn't work. This attack makes him realize that he is getting used to demon energy, and that he can feel it flowing through his body. His gut is telling him that he has around 60% left, as the big blast took around 10%, while it took 3% each time he made smaller attacks. If it drops down to 0, he might go berserk like before. As expected, Goayu comes out unharmed, saying that he underestimated Su. He then questions Goayu if he really plans to eat him, as it doesn't feel like that. Surprisingly, Goayu agrees, saying that he doesn't plan to eat him, and questions what a Demon King is. When Su gives him an answer that a normie might give, he informs him that the only reason demons follow this absurd rule of the festival is because it is a tradition passed down. The demons don't follow someone just because they are stronger, and normally there'd be a bloodbath in the demon realm. To avoid this, the demons created a safety measure called the Demon King, a being who rules over demons in exchange for their safety. For the past 10 years, the Demon King always ensured the well-being of demons, excluding the current Demon King. Goayu asks Su how it would feel if a rule prohibited humans from eating meat. He replies that many people will resist, and Goayu lets him know that demons have been following such a rule for 666 years. But their patience is running thin, and if a similar rule is made once again, not everyone will obey this time. Even though the king is the strongest, he won't be able to stop all the demons who refuse to obey him, and it will result in the Demon King's authority crashing down. Furthermore, he comments that the same might happen to Su if he were to become the Demon King, advising him not to listen to Solmi as she is pretty naive. Goayu mentions that he was planning on crushing Su, but he kind of likes him now. He then invites Su to join him, as that way he might be able to protect a few people he cares about. Su questions if Goayu is confident in becoming the next Demon Lord, to which he agrees that he might not be the strongest, but is stronger than all the participants. Shockingly, Su agrees and extends his hand, deciding to accept if he promises to protect his people. But as soon as Goayu shakes his hand, Su begins using his powers, reminding him that he is the one who attacked him first. Furthermore, he grabs Goayu's jacket and uses all of the 60% remaining demon energy to land a mountain flip on Goayu. After the attack, Su seems exhausted due to the low amount of demon energy present inside his body. Stamina supplement and injury recovery aren't working either, making it impossible for him to fight. Just then, he notices Goayu standing right in front of him. He praises Su for hiding his bloodthirst to land an attack and mentions that he would have lost if he were some ordinary demon, while Su looks at him helplessly. Eventually, he asks for Su's last words, but Su replies that as he intended to eliminate Goayu, he is ready to have the same happen to him. He then gets back up, saying that it's not over yet. Go-Ahew notices the look in Su's eyes and mentions that he talks bait for someone with wobbly legs. He then stretches out his hand and pats Su on his shoulder, saying that he knew Su wouldn't disappoint him. Furthermore, Go-Ahew mentions that he passed the test and decides to support him. This sudden change in behavior confuses Su, and Go-Ahew lets him know that not everyone is looking forward to the Night of Demons. Ever since he was little, he always hated how the demon realm was and liked how peaceful the human world was in comparison. Furthermore, humans know how to enjoy themselves with comics, games, and books. He says that they wouldn't want a world where humans are not capable of making such things. Su argues that it is not enough of a reason to support him, and says that Go-Ahew can become a demon lord as well, but he replies that he can't be bothered. Even though he has the highest chance of winning, there is another problem. The top candidates, including him, are all from clans with rich history and abilities that get passed down. It is the same as humans, one with a golden spoon in their mouth. Su questions if there is pressure from his family. Go-Ahew agrees, saying that they are forced to make an oath to align their interests with the clans. If they don't, they are either dragged down or eliminated by the clan. However, Su is different as he is from a powerful bloodline, but isn't bound by the will of his clan. Go-Ahew then begins forcing Su to become the Demon King, no matter what, and when he tries to back up, Somi appears out of nowhere and kicks Go-Ahew right in his face, sending him flying and crashing into the trees. Su tells her to wait, but she attacks once again, telling Su that this much won't even put a scratch on Go-Ahew. Following that, she lets Su know that the guy he met wasn't Go-Ahew, but his split personality. Apparently, the Black Tortoise, which is his clan, is a mix of snake and tortoise. Long ago, it just used to be a tortoise, then one day, a genius managed to separate the yin from the yang and awakened as a divine creature through breaking the limits of birth. They are back home, and Somi continues the explanation, calling Go-Ahew's other personality snake that also causes trouble. The snake is mostly known to be calm and cold, but Go-Ahew's snake is different and can take control over his body from time to time. With that being said, she tells him to get ready to go back, but he is worried about messing up his house as it'll make his mom worried. Just then, Mang-Tai appears, telling him not to worry as some demons can take care of it. He then asks Somi to go back, and when he tries to reassure him that it was her fault, Mang-Tai replies that he knows but still needs to talk in private. Surprisingly, Seoa also appears and is impressed seeing where humans live for the first time. Su asks Mang-Tai if she is out with permission like him, but Seoa replies that it was Mang-Tai who suddenly dragged her there. With that being said, Mang-Tai explains that around 50 kobolds appeared in Seoul and attacked humans. He tells Su that their goal might have been to target him after drawing out Somi. Furthermore, around 200 humans disappeared from Korea, which surprised both Su and Seoa. Somi says that they can catch the culprit if they cross the list of suspects, but Mang-Tai lets her know that the demons who attacked are from outside of Korea. Lastly, he says that the qualification test Su and Seoa were supposed to give in a month will be taken right now. Their assignment will be to track down and eliminate the demons responsible for this mess. Do you think these two will be able to clear the test? Comment Goblin if you'd like a part 2 of this series. As usual, thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.